Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a really thought-provoking area. You know how mainstream society often just sees interracial relationships as, well, progress, or maybe just personal choice?
Right, that's the common view.
Well, our sources today suggest something quite a bit more nuanced, it seems, within certain parts of Black America, particularly among the, let's say, generationally educated.
Yeah.
These relationships act as a really significant social signal. It's quite a fascinating look at internal dynamics, things that are often completely missed from the outside.
Completely misunderstood.
Often.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we're going to unpack what the source material calls the class code of interracial coupling in Black America. Our mission really is to reveal how these relationships get perceived internally, which is often, totally contrary to those external assumptions.
Right.
We're going to explore what these relationships signal about class, about culture, and even the understanding of power within that specific Black American context.
Okay.
Let's unpack this.
Let's do it. So our source material kicks off with this really interesting, though metaphorical idea. It uses a Stockholm lens for interracial coupling.
Right, and it's crucial to clarify that up front.
Absolutely. This isn't about, the actual trauma of Stockholm Syndrome, not at all.
Well.
Here, it's used more to describe a kind of psychological alignment, maybe with broader power structures that might subtly undermine one's own group, perhaps unintentionally.
That's right. And when we look at, say, Black individuals from maybe lower socioeconomic backgrounds who are very public, very proud about their interracial relationships, the research suggests that the Black elite, they often view them through this specific lens.
Okay.
They're seen as having possibly internalized certain white aspirational norms and maybe lacking a deeper cultural awareness.
And the nuance here is really striking, isn't it? The material explicitly says they are pitied.
Pitied, yeah, not hated, not envied.
Exactly. And the pity, it explains, is not for who they love, but for why they love them.
Yeah, that why is key.
It suggests the judgment isn't on the affection itself, but on the perceived motivation behind it. Something deeper.
Precisely. So this perspective tends to frame that choice not as, liberation or freedom,
Right.
but maybe as a symptom of something else, a kind of miseducation perhaps,
Hmm.
or lack of grooming, as the source puts it. Fundamentally, seeing it as a product of dislocation, not liberation.
Dislocation, suggesting a disconnect from certain cultural roots or foundations.
Exactly. But I guess the question that comes up is, how can anyone truly know the why? How can you differentiate genuine love from this perceived dislocation?
That's a really fair point. And the material seems to suggest it's less about dissecting the individual's private feelings.
Okay.
And more about how the public display of that relationship is read, is interpreted by a particular community. It's about the signaling.
Ah, the signaling. Got it.
Now, this leads us to challenge a common narrative, right? You often hear about interracial dating like it's just widespread across the board in Black America.
That's the assumption.
But our research paints a different picture. It suggests interracial dating is actually not that common among Black people who have, generational education, established class stature, and that deep cultural embeddedness.
Right. And when it does happen within this specific elite group, it tends to look very different.
How so?
Well, the analysis describes it as typically private, understated, and strategically contextualized.
Okay, like what?
Think maybe relationships with, say, foreign white partners or ones developed within very specific settings, like high-level academic or corporate environments.
So not relationships that are, loudly broadcast.
Exactly. Not displayed in a way that seems to seek attention or validation.
Which brings us to a really key question. Why this focus on privacy for this group?
Well, according to the material, for these individuals, romantic choice isn't just personal. It's deeply tied to cultural allegiance and also class signaling.
Okay.
So a public, very conspicuous interracial relationship, especially if it looks like someone is using it to, say, claim upward mobility or status, that violates a kind of unwritten code, a code of racial and communal alignment.
And this is where the source offers that really sharp, almost counterintuitive insight, isn't it?
It really is. It's a critical distinction they make. The text says, it is not simply dating white that's read as suspect.
Right.
It is dating white loudly, as if it's a status upgrade that's considered low-status behavior.
Wow. So the loudness, the flaunting, that's the signal that's read negatively.
Precisely. It flips the script on what you might expect constitutes status. It suggests the perception isn't about the relationship per se, but about the way it's presented. What does that presentation signal about your own self-worth and cultural grounding?
Right. And building on that, these public interracial relationships can actually function as pretty clear class indicators among Black Americans.
Definitely a powerful socioeconomic tell, you could say,
Oh.
revealing much more than just who someone loves.
So what exactly do these displays reveal according to those deeply rooted in Black educational, cultural, and communal traditions?
Well, the source lists several things. Often it signals a perceived cultural disconnection, maybe a lack of racial self-regard, sometimes a misinterpretation of what success signals actually are within that context,
Okay.
and maybe most critically, a misunderstanding of how power works. It really paints this picture of a disconnect, doesn't it, between what might seem like status externally and what constitutes actual cultural capital internally.
So it's like, while someone from maybe a poor or working class Black background might think, okay, dating a white partner is proof I've leveled up.
Right, that could be the assumption.
The Black elite, according to this, reads that exact same signal completely inversely.
Completely inversely.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating reversal.
Yeah.
And the text puts it very powerfully. It says something like, the more loudly one flaunts whiteness as a trophy, the more clearly one reveals their detachment from true Black cultural capital.
Detachment from cultural capital. So the display actually lowers their perceived status within that specific internal framework.
That's the implication. It doesn't elevate it. It does the opposite. It really makes you pause, doesn't it? Thinking about how many choices we think are purely personal are actually just loaded with these unspoken cultural meanings.
Absolutely. It completely reframes how we might think about social status signals. Now, we've mostly focused on the sort of generational elite perspective.
Right.
But it's also fascinating how other significant frameworks within Black America, like ADOS and FBA, come to similar conclusions about interracial dating, but for very different reasons.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is, okay, so ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery, and FBA, Foundational Black Americans. These are frameworks really emphasizing that unique lineage.
Yeah.
Right? The historical experience of Black Americans descended from U.S. chattel slavery.
Focusing on things like lineage-based reparations, collective identity.
Exactly. So for them, the concern about interracial coupling isn't so much about social grooming or cultural codes in the same way. It's rooted more in political cohesion.
Political cohesion, how so?
Well, from their perspective, it's not just personal. They argue it can potentially dilute collective identity. They see it as possibly weakening the group's unity, maybe complicating efforts around reparations, for instance, and even potentially compromising loyalty to the Black American experience by, diffusing focus away from those specific lineage-based concerns. Their logic is tied much more directly to a shared political destiny, you could say.
Ah, I see. So that's quite different from the educated Black elite view we were discussing earlier.
Very different.
Which the source framed more in terms of social grooming and cultural fidelity.
Right.
Adherence to those deep-seated cultural norms and values.
Exactly right. So you have both groups arriving at a similar kind of conclusion that public interracial coupling is viewed with, let's say, suspicion. But the logic is different. For ADOS FBA, it might be read as a kind of political betrayal or weakening of the collective.
Whereas for the educated elite, it's more about cultural misalignment.
Precisely. Same outcome. Very different reasoning behind it.
So the really profound takeaway here, what our source kind of boils down to, code, not love, is this powerful reminder, isn't it?
It is.
That even choices we think of as intensely personal, like who we partner with, can operate as these complex social signals.
Absolutely.
And in the internal hierarchy described here within parts of Black America, public interracial coupling isn't seen as progressive the way it often is externally.
No. Quite the opposite sometimes.
Instead, it gets interpreted, at least by those in the know, so to speak, as a symptom of low-status cultural development, not necessarily a marker of freedom or success.
Yeah, a symptom, not a celebration.
And the ultimate point the source seems to make is that the perceived mistake isn't about who is loved.
No, love itself isn't the issue.
It's about thinking that love is exempt from context and publicly advertising that ignorance. It comes back to that signaling, that perceived lack of awareness about cultural and class codes.
Exactly. It's about reading the room, culturally speaking, and what happens when that reading seems off.
Which really prompts us, I think, to consider more broadly how our personal choices, especially when made public, might carry these unintended, coded meanings within any specific cultural or class context.
That's a great point. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? So maybe the question for you listening is, what does this all mean for you? How might understanding these kinds of internal codes in this context or others change your perspective on what defines success or progress? Not just in relationships, but maybe in careers, in lifestyle choices.
Yeah, how public displays of what seems like personal choice can carry meanings you never intended, depending on the audience. Something to think about.